Coming up on today's show.
Because not only are we not always aware of what strengths we have, just how to use them for our benefits.
You know what? Let's figure out how to figure out what your strengths are, or how do you put it into application with your clients?
So some of those strengths have to do with different modalities, like how we see, how we hear.
Using your strengths for organizing and productivity today on Keeping You Organized. Well, hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we are going to do some strength training, get those muscles pumped up, but actually we're going to talk more about how you use your strengths to really be more productive and get more organized. And we're going to bring on the president-elect, right, of the National Association of Professional Organizers, Ellen DeLapp. How are you doing, Ellen?
Good. How are you, John?
I'm doing great, and you're from the Houston area. I know recently the Super Bowl was there, trying to get over all the hoopla of that. But you know that's in the rearview mirror now. So, but you see a lot of. Did you ever see any of those big, bulky guys walking around the city at all?
It was very exciting for the city because we were very integrated. We had a lot of things like the NFL experience and Super Bowl Live. So there was a lot of fun things that were going on around the city that had to do with the special events going on here.
Well, listen, we're going to kind of just use that as a perfect segue into talking about strength, because, you know, those guys are like built like tree stumps, you know. But let's talk about how we look at strengths and how they help us with organization and productivity. And really, what are we talking about? I think we need to kind of define this concept of even what a strength is.
That's a really good point, because not only are we not always aware of what strengths we have, just how to use them for our benefits. So a lot of times when we're learning new information or kind of processing something, we're really relying on ways that we intuitively and naturally learn. So some of those strengths have to do with different modalities, like how we see, how we hear, how we move. And a lot of this is, although not well-researched founded, very anecdotally, I find that people realize once they realize what their strengths are, then they're much more attuned to process things more easily, organize more easily, be more productive. So the strengths aren't necessarily the weights we're lifting as just how we see the world and how we integrate information.
Well, what got you interested in this, and how have you kind of dug into this subject?
Well, I've been very fortunate because I've been taking training with Denslow Brown in Coach Approach. And as I've worked with my clients, I've just found it so natural for them to be able to integrate this information and really move forward with things that they've struggled with before. So it's a very much of a win-win for them.
Let's just tell me just a little bit about Denslow Brown then, and how that program works. And are you taking like online classes, or how does that work?
I'm really excited about the program that I'm involved with her. Her classes are presented in a sequence of 4 or 5 series of classes, and it's online. There's also small group training that I do with classmates, which I love because it's very much, we're learning from each other and we're learning together. It's very much a team approach. And then we're doing a lot of practicing with our clients. So on many levels, we're integrating how to use coaching in our work with our clients in organizing and productivity.
All right, let's say I'm a client that comes to you. Are you kind of using this assessment with most of your clients kind of in the beginning, saying, you know what, let's figure out how to figure out what your strengths are, or how do you put it into application with your clients?
Well, with our first session, what we're usually talking about is what strengths have they relied on in the past? What's really worked for them? And in the language they use, a lot of times are kind of keys to how they're integrating information. So if they use the common phrase, out of sight is out of mind, then I can realize that a lot of the work that we'll have to do will rely on their visual strength. And when they see things, they understand things. Sometimes they'll say, I hear what you mean. So I can see that they're much more auditory. And then some people really, they have a background in sports or dance, and they'll be sharing about information with that. And I tend to align my work with kinesthetic learning then, like movement integrated, like they need to literally manually move the things that we're going to be doing, not my manipulating them for them. So a lot of it is verbal, a lot of it is body language, So it's different types of information that I'm integrating. And then we have, I usually take a little tour of the space with them that we're working on, or I'll look at the office that we're going to be using that space for productivity. A lot of information in the beginning, but there also, once we start talking about this, I see a lot of head nodding and really seeing that people are buying in.
Okay, I think this is great. I think that's a great framework of getting it down into those different styles. There's probably other levels to it too, I would imagine, or sub levels of. Are those kind of like the high level categories, or are there other ones that we should be looking at?
9 categories.
Oh, there are. Okay.
9 modalities in the work I've done with Denslow. Some of them even have to do with how we think, like cognitive processing or verbal processing. So cognitive, in your head more, you're sorting things out. Verbal, you're talking things through. And a lot of the work I do with my clients are verbal processors. They have to talk it through to get it clear. So yes, there's a lot of different types of processing and learning styles.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to get a little bit more into going into each of those styles or categories, and maybe saying how does that, what would be some of the approaches that you would use. So we're with Ellen DeLapp here talking about using your strengths for organizing and productivity, and we'll be right back. Now there's a place just for you. Life can be busy, and you still have to keep it all together. That's why you like to be organized and in control. Introducing MyOrganized.life, a special place where you can get ideas and solutions to organize what's important to you, your important papers, your important decisions, your important life events. We show you the ideas and products to stay organized in your life. See what's new. Stop by and say hello. Visit us at any time at www.myorganized.life. It's just for you. MyOrganized.life by Smead. Find us at www.myorganized.life. MyOrganized.life. We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about strengths, using your strengths to be more organized, be more productive. And in the first part, Ellen DeLapp here from professional-organizer.com. We talked about, identifying kind of the high-level categories, and I know there's 9 of them. I don't think we're going to be able to talk about all of them in depth, but let's take an example from a client where you've identified one of those categories and then how you've either helped them be more organized or more productive.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say, primarily, my clients are very visual.
Okay.
And in doing so, they're often talking about how I have to see things, and they leave things out on their desk or in their home because they want to be able to see it as a reminder. So one of the things we're focusing on is other types of reminders, like could the list be a reminder and help them be more productive, but less visually distracting, so not so much is out at the same time.
Would you say that then for someone who has a list, who's a visual, would you want that list like on the refrigerator or on their desk if it was at an office place, or is on your phone or somewhere maybe not so visual? Maybe is that less desirable?
Well, it really depends on the person. If they're very agile, often I'm referring to Evernote for on the phone, and my clients really gravitate to that. But many of them use notebooks, like you might imagine, many notebooks. So often I'll suggest using just the one notebook, dated, and having the running list so it's all out of their mind, but at the same time prioritizing, talking about the 3 most important things they're going to be doing for the next day. And just so they kind of highly define their priorities as well as keep a list visually.
Now, how about those people that love the little Post-it notes on the bottom of the computer monitor? I mean, I've only got 10 of them. But they're there because I don't want them to be out of my sight. I mean, how do you work with someone when you see someone who's got all these Post-it notes? And I know there are people out there like that. I'm not one of those. But what do you suggest for them to do?
Well, it really depends. If those Post-it notes are valuable because they're kinesthetic learners, I like them to manipulate those. Like they want to move them around and they want to put them in places that they're going to be able to be more effective using them. But if they're using them as a visual reminder, I usually have them create a resource book that they can keep at their fingertips so that they can easily find the information, but it doesn't have to be visually distracting too.
Right. You know what I find I end up doing? Sometimes I take notes on I started on a Post-it note, and then all of a sudden, I got to take more notes. Then I got like 10 Post-it notes. So then I just kind of, gang them together, and it's this ugly, long, like, why didn't I use a notebook? But that just happens sometimes, So
Exactly. What's a little train of them?
Yeah. What are other thoughts that a visual person can use to help get organized, either at their desk or maybe in their home?
So sometimes people that are visual are also highly aesthetic, and the beauty of their home is an element that we want to play on. So the visualness isn't only just keeping clarity with distractions, it's also creating an environment that nurtures us. So we want to find things that are soothing and calm, potentially working with color.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's colors that people love and they make them feel happy, things like that. So sometimes we'll be drilling down to how to create an aesthetic overall. Sometimes we're drilling down for access. Like I often find people have a lot of clothes that they're not quite clean, they're not quite dirty. So we use hooks in different spaces, especially for families where we want to keep things by our landing strip at the back door. So hooks are very valuable. And then just different types of sorters that can keep things visual. I think, a stacking tray with labels. Labels are another visual aspect that I'm just a fanatic about labels. So it makes a big difference.
No, we have the Viewables product where it allows you to put like the icon or the index character on there. Do you think visual learners would work well with that kind of thing?
Absolutely. There's all sorts of visual clues. Icons are great. And color is great. So both of those would be a real asset, definitely.
I was thinking back to, I can't remember which professional organizer it was, and we were talking about organizing with color, and I said, she goes, I like to use the pink folders. And I said, well, what does pink represent? Because you always want to think, does the color represent? She goes, no, I just like the color. It's pleasing to me. So it's okay. All right, that's great. We're not just with the manila ones, so that's great.
Exactly. And also just the whole concept of using color draws out distinctions to people. So I agree. Anything you love. I have a lot of people that like green with money personally.
Right.
So any kind of money folders are green.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we sell lots of green folders too, so people can get a hold of those. You know what? We're kind of running out of time here for this episode, but I want to give you a moment first to talk about professional-organizer.com and in your business and kind of what kind of clients you work with and how people can get a hold of you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I work primarily with ADHD clients. My business is not only based in Houston, but I also work virtually with clients. And so I'd love to talk with anyone who feels that they'd like to be more organized or more productive.
Yes. And so we're going to have to actually come back for the second half of this episode here, because we've just only talked about one area of the 9. There's a lot of different things, but this is for the more visual person, but I know there's other areas that we want to touch on. So you're willing to come back for the second half?
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm glad you are, because it'd be really hard if I had to do that whole thing by myself. So, all right. Well, folks, there you have it. Next time on Keeping You Organized, we're going to talk more about using your strengths for getting organized and being more productive. And we'll do that next time on Keeping You Organized.